All set?
Yeah.
Good evening. Welcome to the select board meeting. It's Tuesday, August 20th, 2024. All members are present. We're going to start with the pledge of allegiance. The flag is in the corner. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all. Conflicts of interest in the upcoming agenda, board members.
Not a conflict of interest, but possible appearance of a bias.
Okay, thank you. Meeting minutes, consider approving. We have.
July 16th is just a correction copy from an issue that
Oh, right.
was resolved in the motion for some.
Okay. So we're just looking at.
It was, I believe it was a 2,000 discrepancy.
So do we have to do anything with the 16th?
No, you're just signing it.
Okay,
Although, next regular select board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, August 6th. Needs to be changed to Tuesday, August 20th. I'm reading the minutes for August 6th. So, basically a typo when we were going through them, sure.
Typo on the meeting time start time as well. Pulled to order at 6 p.m.
Correct.
No, that's
correct.
That was,
No, it wasn't.
it was the week. It was another week.
The week we
Yes.
started with an executive session.
Right,
was a
right.
6
So it's
PM
6:30. I move that we accept the minutes for August 6th with the changes of when the meeting came to order, which was 6:30, not 6. And the next regular scheduled board meeting being changed from August 6th to August 20th.
discussion. All in favor? Okay. Warrants. Anybody want to take us through the warrants?
Yeah, I move that we approve the accounts payable number 6 in the amount of $266,512.59.
That was the RSU payment for 233,000.
Okay. Is everything in the budget that's on that warrant?
Yes, it was.
Did you second that, Lloyd?
Well, I didn't, but I will in a second.
All right, further discussion? All in favor?
Move that we approve payroll number 7 in the amount of $11,382.37.
Second.
Discussion,
Anything special?
This regular payroll.
all in favor? Okay. Old business, we have an update tonight from the mobile home park, RV park and campground ordinance advisory committee. So I will pass that along. That's it.
Okay, I'm gonna start, since the last update that we gave you as a select board, we have published a red line draft. It is still a work in progress, and we've also published a report, which is, both of those are online on the website. I think the last update we gave was August 6th, and then August 7th, the following day, we had our public hearing that we sponsored. And just for the record, just to know that public notice for that for that public hearing was put out on July 31st. Bryce got it into the Kennebec Journal and Morning Sentinel, so it was published on July 31st. July 31st, it also appeared on our town website. And I'm not sure if it got put at other locations around town. Or
Would
not.
have got put at the post office.
Post
and
office.
copies.
And, okay, and copies, which are, I guess, standard locations. And then on the morning of August 6th, Bryce also sent a public notice out on the town email website. So then August 7th, we had 6:30 PM, we had the public hearing at the Lad Center here. We had about 20 attendees. Weren't sure whether we're gonna, you never know who's gonna show up, but we had 20 attendees, which we thought was quite nice. We had 2 select board members, Lloyd, thank you, and Mary Ann, you were both here. We had 2 from the planning board, and we had 2 from Jellystone. One is the manager from Jellystone, Chris, and another was actually a manager who's not with this Jellystone, but under Northgate Resorts. He was there. And we had, the public hearing was at 2 hours. Part of it might have seemed a little tedious as we were going kind of item by item through the draft, but we did that. And we had great discussion. I think we had good discussion, good questions. We had some very useful comments and input throughout that 2-hour time period. And I think I had mentioned at the August 6th meeting that, different kinds of public hearings. That was a public hearing that was on a more informal, less structured public hearing than you as a select board would run. But we felt that went quite well. And so then we were taking those comments and kind of held on to those. And then I'm gonna let John continue, because then last week we met with the planning board.
Yes, and I just have a few observations from that meeting. The planning board did have quite a number of questions and suggestions. But I think the biggest one was that the Jim King, the lawyer. If you look at the document, there's section 2 for the campground ordinance, and I think it's section 3 for the mobile home park. It has to do with specific regulations for RV parks, campgrounds, specific regulations for mobile home parks. He felt that those sections should more specifically go into the table of the zoning rules, as they are specific regulations. It kind of caught us off guard because we actually looked at a bunch of different town ordinances related to campgrounds, RV parks, and specifically Breedfield's ordinance has that in the ordinance. And so we're gonna just ask you all to think about that and decide what you want us to do in regards to that, because we're not really charged with messing with the zoning, right? And so, but unfortunately, if that change is made, that's gonna set this back a lot, I would think, right? So that was one concern that was raised. And again, I'm not sure that I understand it very well, but that's that. They also had a lot of specific suggestions. They couldn't go through them all. But at the end of it, there seemed to be a reluctance on the planning board to actually put those suggestions in writing and give them to us. And I'm not sure exactly why that is. And I would ask the select board to ask them, instruct them, whatever it is you do, to actually put those suggestions in writing so that we can review them and put them into the ordinance if we feel that they're, reasonable and good things to do.
John, help me, I have your red line, the 17-page draft here. And so can you help me find those sections just so I can
yeah.
study them later? You said,
Section 2, regulations for RV parks and campgrounds is on page 7. And section 3, specific regulations for mobile home parks starts on page 12.
and he's saying that whole section should go into the zoning?
There was some discussion about that, and as I said, you know, the Reed Field ordinance has all of that. I mean, basically, it looks kind of like this, right? Where the regulations are within the ordinance itself. But he seemed to think that, the ordinance really had more to do with, I forget how he put it, but, more with administration permits and definitions.
You know, is it,
Just as a clarification, he was really looking at like this campground ordinance. He said there are performance standards and there are policing reviews, policing standards. And he said that perhaps the performance standards, which John's pointing out, should go into the whole Wayne zoning ordinance. As a component of the Wayne zoning ordinance.
And we didn't understand that it was our charge or your
To do
charge
that.
to us to be amending the Wayne zoning ordinance. But if that's what you want us to do, we'll do it.
Was there any comments from the planning board on that at that meeting? Not, probably not, no real. Yeah, Henry.
Hey, I was at the meeting. I did leave a little early. Thought I'd leave before there's any bloodshed. But, and I would
We didn't
I-
get
I
the
would
greatest
rely-
reception.
rely on, I would rely on other people to explain this a little better, but I understood it was Jim Katsifikis. His opinion is that the solution to the problem that the town declared in the ordinance, in the moratorium, the solution to that problem requires amendments both to the zoning ordinance and to the campground ordinance. And he had some specific, like one specific issue I remember, and some of them are technical issues, some are not. But for example, campgrounds, RVs, and whatever the term is, okay? That term is not a term, that's not the same term used in the zoning ordinance. So he's basically saying, you're regulating with this regulation, with this ordinance, you're regulating a use that isn't one of the uses that the zoning ordinance says exists. I mean, these are technical issues, but I suspect he's probably right. I didn't hear much in the way of well, here's what we're gonna do about it. And I went home and I looked at this. And, there's a 6/18 select board agenda package that included a memo from Jim Katsifikis. That basically, that I read, it was a memo to Trent, and I read it as stating that the select board has no authority over these amendments, other than to arrange for a public vote on whatever the planning board recommends. And if we take Tim as being correct on that point, and I think there's support for what he says in the ordinance, I can see what he's saying. If we take him as being correct on that point, we really don't have any substantive role in this whole thing, except to consider and act on an extension to the moratorium, which will almost certainly be necessary. And so the work and responsibility of actually amending these ordinances seems to be the sole and exclusive job of the planning board. That's what our lawyer tells us. whatever the planning board does, the planning board does. Unless there's a successful petition by voters for a warrant article amending these ordinances. In which case, then our job would be to arrange for a public vote on those articles. So I'm kind of at a loss about what our role is as far as directing the planning board.
Yeah, I recall specifically communicating with Jim in and out of May on the relationship. As questions were raised about the board's relationship with the planning board, so.
So one thing that we considered after that was that I think the table just lists campgrounds. And so, one thing we could do is just instead of specific regulations for RV parks and campgrounds, just say campgrounds. Because in the end, we didn't really think, what's the difference now? It really isn't much of a difference. Campgrounds are now RVs, tents and glamping and, all that kind of thing. So, we can certainly make that small change and at least it would jive with the campground, table. So
Because
anyway,
the word campground exists in the current table, is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
so, but these regulations would not be in the table, they would be in the ordinance.
Right.
But at least it would speak to the fact that we're talking about camping. I think we're just being too, you don't have to be that specific. Okay, so that's the one thing. And the other thing is about the specific questions. I always thought that the planning board worked at the direction of the select board. And so, it would be very helpful to us if the planning board would give us in writing the suggestions that they think need to be made to the ordinance. Because they had more suggestions that couldn't get out at the meeting. And it would just help us to do our work if we had that information.
Well, this seems to perpetuate a tradition in our planning board meetings that they don't keep any minutes.
Is that,
This seems to be the policy. There are never any minutes that are prepared. Anybody who's interested in those proceedings. And I raised this last year in some connection or other, and I thought we were gonna communicate with them that we think they ought to need minutes. What do you suppose the story is on that? We at least have the right to request that they do that, don't we?
aren't we required to take minutes as a select board? Required,
It's the select board's doings, but I'm saying it was the minutes of the
right,
planning.
and I
board issue.
understand that.
It was the planning board's minutes that seems to be traditionally waived aside. And I am wondering what gives, is there a requirement that the planning board should take minutes or not?
I don't know, I'd have to look at their, if they have a charge, an organizational charge, the planning board.
Right,
I would ask to speak, I'm not a resident, I would ask to speak. So to answer your question, yes, all boards are required to have minutes.
Yeah.
It can be very minimal just who was present, what was voted on, and what the outcome of the vote was, but that is required by state law. And additionally, regardless of minutes, their meetings are posted on YouTube. So if you don't have it, I only made it through half the planning board before coming tonight. But you can at least figure out what was discussed at that meeting, because it's on YouTube, it's public information. But they are required to have at least minimal
Yeah.
minutes.
So beyond that. The chairman of the committee made a statement at the beginning of the meeting where he asked us all to identify ourselves and asked us if we were, for instance, affiliated with ALEC. And the question sounded, it sounded like he really felt like the committee was not representative of the town. And that felt aggressive, I would have to say. Because you know, who's in A-Lake,
Sure.
you know, raise your hand, you know, and
Who's a resident of the
our,
town?
our thought was that we volunteered for this. And we asked, you know, the select board looked through whoever volunteered and then just decided. So it doesn't seem to me like that's a really valid question to ask a committee that's trying to do some work for the town. And the other thing is, afterwards, I thought to myself, I should have asked, how many people on the planning board are members of A-Lake? How many people on the planning board have property on the lake or whatever? It doesn't matter. You're a member of the town of Wayne. And so I think that I'm just gonna lay that out there because, you know, that really, I felt to me like they were not really listening to us. They sort of felt like we had an agenda and we really don't, right? So in any event, that was that. Then the other thing that, well,
Okay, finish.
I think, you know, let's not get into it too much. I think I said what needed to be said. The other thing was that one of the planning board members he asked a question whether or not the town was being sued by Sun Microsystems or whatever it is, who owns Jellystone. What's that got to do with the committees, right? It just seemed to me like, you better be careful what you're doing here, because if you don't do the right thing, the town's gonna get sued. And it just seemed to me like, where's that question? Where's that question? So those were two things that kind of set the tone in the beginning of the meeting, and so in any event, those are just some things that made the committee members kind of feel a little bit weird. The word of the day is weird. And then finally, the only thing I wanted to say about the meeting, it became abundantly clear to us that although we've done a lot of work on this, the other thing the planning board, the head of the planning board said, boy, you really did make a lot of changes. We didn't expect so many changes. And the thing of it is, well, you know, that's what we were charged to do. Look at what needed to be done. If you don't like the changes, you don't have to accept them. You know, you just have to read through them and figure them out. But that being said, that made it more clear to us that this is not getting done at the end of the next 180 days. So, anyway, those are the only things I wanted to say as my response to the meeting.
I guess.
Oh.
Just 2 cents worth here, that I feel we all got involved in this because we do care about the town. And we want what's gonna be best for it going forward. And we have tried to have all the timelines and do the best we can. We're not professional zone rewriters. We're learning as we go. But one of my questions to them is, I just would like for you to give us some feedback on what don't you like about it? How can we make it better? What's easier for them to work with? Because this is like a group activity. It's not us against them. It's not supposed to be that way. And they really felt we were not qualified as a committee to be representative of the town, and that was such a statement during that meeting.
One specific thing to add to that is there was more than one suggestion that apparently Jellystone should be on the committee. The committee was appointed, of course, by all of you, and you determined that there was a conflict of interest. But the planning board apparently didn't hear or appreciate that. Whether or not we agree with that, we've already remedied that by deciding that we will invite specifically every time we have a meeting, any Jellystone representative who would care to come and participate and be part of our group, even though they're not officially part of the committee. And in our view, they shouldn't be, because I don't think any of us have ever heard of a situation where a regulation is being written and one of the entities that the regulation is supposed to regulate writes the regulation for itself.
I beg to differ. They do this in Washington all the time.
No, actually, that's called, well, maybe they do, but it's called notice and comment, and we're giving them notice and comment.
They do it in Washington all the time.
I just want to comment briefly then, Henry. I do want to point out that there was discussion about whether there could be a conflict of interest, but I think the select board's ultimate decision was based on the applications that were received, and they were received within the deadline. Because there was just, and I think because we had talked about one way or the other on who was represented on the committee, but I do think at the end of the day, there was like, the applications are on time, this is who's on it, and we're moving forward, but yes, I hear your point. Henry.
Okay, it wasn't a friendly meeting. And they're coming here asking us to do something about it. I think we need to write Jim and just get a more clear delineation. I'm not so sure we.
I was trying to, I don't have any service here, but I agree, I have.
I'm not sure there's anything we can do about it, or it's our place to do about it.
He gave me in May, and I don't know if that's the same note that you have in front of you, he gave me a rundown of the relationship, and I was gonna retrieve that, but it doesn't hurt to follow up with that based on these
Yeah,
situations.
well,
I
yeah,
agree.
I looked at that today, and what he said was, since the ordinance, he basically said you should treat a planning board recommendation the same as you treat a petition, a voter's petition. He said, you don't have any right to, his specific was, you don't have any right to veto, you being us. We don't have any right to veto a voter's petition. He doesn't think we have any right to veto a planning board recommendation.
Yeah,
And if that's if that's the case, then there's no redress to that to be had here.
All we're trying to do is work cooperatively.
I know.
with the
well, I
planning.
wanted,
Can someone help us do that?
well, I think it's important also, I'd like to note that we are reacting and responding procedurally to the moratorium that was voted and passed. We are moving forward to demonstrate the requirements to further the extension. I think what you're doing is the charge of the committee, it's the charge from the select board, you're within bounds, obviously, we know that. I don't think I'm in a position or to necessarily comment on the reactions or responses of the planning board at this particular meeting. I think Henry brings up a point that we can further identify the relationship. And if there's a possibility after getting some information, then I think we could.
Yeah.
And see if there's a way to communicate in a way that's effective. But I think from the information that we're hearing right now, I carry on. I mean, the charge is what's been given, and then right now, timing wise, will you submit? Because they have to review this said zoning ordinance.
So moving forward, we are, we're looking at the committee meeting, sometime the end of next week. Possibly Thursday, the 29th, I think we talked about, and we'll make sure that, as I've done, I've let Bryce know, so he posts that on the website. So, because it is a public meeting, and the planning board does not want to hear back from us until Thursday, September 19th, when they have their next meeting. So they will not be meeting until September 19th. They don't want to hear back from us until then. I mean, well, they'll get a draft or some other work so that we can talk about a continued discussion on the 19th, which means that there's no way this will get on to November, because we have to have everything wrapped up and agreed upon by September 5th. So that's not going to happen. That's why, so now we're looking at September 19th to meet with them again, just to have more discussion. That's not even a public hearing. Sometime after that, they did say they could take up to 4 months to review this. And so 4 months, yes, we will need an extension. But they can take up to 4 months. once we get through discussion with them and have a draft that they want to push forward or move forward on, they have to have a public hearing before it comes back to the select board to make a recommendation to put it as a to the town vote and have another public hearing. So there's no way it will be ready for the benefit, bottom line.
Seems so when the planning board's complaints is the makeup of the committee. The committee was established by the select board. And it may be valuable for the select board to at least explain to the planning board why you chose to put this committee for the members of the committee. Rather than having just taking it out, and we didn't have any say. In what the people were.
It seems irrelevant to me, but
I didn't know we had a draft.
and I don't know
Then we
why
could
we
draft
have to, either way, I hear what you're saying. Thank you.
I just need to, just personally, it was, I felt like it was very disrespectful. It was also unprofessional. We were made to, I felt like I was a student in a classroom having to raise my hand, you know, and answer specific questions and I felt like we were being criticized for the makeup of the committee when we did not have anything to do with the makeup of the committee other than submitting our names in an application and following
Right.
the rules.
Absolutely.
And it was,
Well, I think I hear. I'm gonna go right now. I think we should follow up and get some advice on this. Are there any other board member thoughts?
It occurs
Comments?
to me that we could, if we agree with what has been said, we could send a memo indicating why it was that we did what we did. Just restating what you just said. We did it under pressure of time and then under pressure of the feeling that there was not a good policy to have them on that committee. And we could also comment on the effect of those statements, which was creating an atmosphere that was not positive. We could do that.
I think we should get the advice from the lawyer on the relationship between the planning board and the select board and ask that question, should we provide any background on the vote that was passed to form this committee and it's unfortunate because, you know, feelings are hard to deal with. Like, we all have our own feelings, right? And it's really hard if you feel you were disrespected, but I think we need to get the recommendation on how the boards are supposed to act together.
Along with that, one of the first or the earlier things that was brought up was the information that was contained in the ordinance that should be pushed back, potentially pushed back into the zoning ordinance. And if it's potentially covered by changing some of the wording that would get us under the umbrella of the ordinance, I'd like to know if that's doable and if that would cover Jim's concern.
So personally, I feel as though as we move forward, we'd like to keep it just the way it is. With that change about campgrounds, because like I said, it mirrors Reed Fields. I mean, just the one town above. And then later, if the select board thinks that the information contained in the ordinance actually also ought to be in the zoning, then that can always be done, right? His argument was that there'd be confusion. And I would have to say that there's confusion in everything that we do, right? And that the ordinances will be pretty clear. And I don't think it necessarily has to be referenced in the table to make it clear. So, so I think probably, well, you know, and again, we're just making a recommendation. And I think probably we'll move forward and just continue with the ordinance the way it is. And then do with it what you may.
But if the lawyer's advice is he thinks it's better to have the substantive performance standards in the zoning ordinance, well, then what John's saying is we can take what we've already done and recommend where it could go in the ordinance, if that's what the lawyer's best advice is. We just need to have some direction on what to do here.
Where's, do you have the charge in front of you? By chance?
No,
The
I
committee
have
charge?
what he wrote up as a possibility.
Oh, but you don't have the select board committee charge for your committee, correct? I don't have it in front of me. I just wanted
At
to,
home I do.
that's okay, it's okay. I mean, if it's within bounds of the. I don't have the charge in front of me. I wish I did. Cause the committee was charged with reviewing, recommending. I just don't have the
Right.
language in front of me.
Right.
It's not a big deal. I'm just trying to react to say, do we want this committee to pursue this advice from Jim Kay to then present to the planning board? And is that sensible based on the original charge and the workload and the timing?
Well, I think it's really just as simple as taking the information in that section 2 and section 3 and just copying and pasting it to the zone, right? And I don't understand how the zoning rules are created and approved, right? And I know there's a review going on of the zoning. And so that's why I think, you know, we'll just keep it what we have. And then in the end, if the decision is that should actually be in the zoning table, it's simply a matter of cutting and pasting, if it's agreed to, right? And so.
I mean, right, I mean. From what I understand, oh, I'll be right with you. Excuse, I mean. Which we've said before, how I understand the process, and I know you're fully aware of the process, is that ultimately it has to go to the planning board. The planning board is gonna have to review aspects of it, organizational components of it, so. We didn't answer your question directly. Do you want, they're asking the board if they should pursue these organizational aspects in their work, or if that falls on the planning board.
Well, I recall the charge maybe had both ordinances in it, but I'm not gonna swear to that. We'd have to look at it. And I know the moratorium ordinance, or the moratorium speaks to both ordinances. Hey, this is just the way kind of I see things. You have a charge, you do it to the best of your ability until you think it's done, and you give it to the planning board. And that's the way I see the world, but I don't know that
Right.
we can do anything other than that. And then the planning board needs to do, everybody needs to do their job. You do your job, give it to the planning board, then they should do their job and make recommendations and give it to us. And I don't know that our job is to tell them what to do.
Right.
We need to find that out from Jim.
Oh, Belgium. Huge.
Right. You had a comment, question?
Yeah, I don't know if this is just belaboring the point, we should just give up on it, and or me just not understanding it. But aren't the ordinances in red, I mean, inside the zoning, and the zoning is already there, and it's a zone 2, and they're making ordinances for zone 2, so what's the zoning issue? Do you understand my question?
Answer that.
I mean, aren't the ordinances to deal with the zone as it is, zone 2,
Mhm.
which already the planning board missed that it was a zone 2, and which is kind of crucial.
Mhm.
And I thought the ordinances were trying to straighten out what you can do in the zone. So why is there a zoning issue?
Yeah, so I think what I'd like to, yeah, I understand, yeah, I guess. for this conversation. Some of those questions are probably better, I mean. They're planning board questions. I mean, we could look into them and we could.
And they've been asked
They
those
missed
questions.
it.
I know, I mean, I just am not in a position to comment
Okay.
on the planning board's performance. I'm not gonna do that tonight. But what I can do is. But what we can do is talk about the committee charge and what you're charged with from the select board table. And I think the work you've done so far is expressing good work, and I think the work you're gonna do in the future will continue that. So I think at this point, that's really where we need to kind of wrap up. We'll talk one more, yeah.
Just we're, the whole campground ordinance is looking at the whole town. The campground ordinance is for the whole town. It
Yeah.
is not specific for one zone. And so that's really a whole other different piece, but so just
Okay.
what we're looking at really covers the whole town.
I understand. Anything further at this point, or? We don't have really, there were some questions that are somewhat unanswered, but I think Henry summarized it well. If we'll get some information, we'll get some follow-up on the relationship with the planning board, and maybe we can communicate that the next time we get together. Or
So
clarify
relative to
that.
the unanswered question, I think until we have a directive that says don't do something, they should continue with the charge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Thank you.
And-
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're almost done. So we're almost done. I mean.
Yeah, you've done a lot of work.
Your step was just
So I
finding out
understand.
what was what the planning board's feedback was related to the work you've done, so that's pretty
Right,
much.
which
where
we
you're
are happy to incorporate.
But we haven't gotten each other.
Okay.
Well, maybe we don't need to, because they can make those changes on their own. I have
Right.
Well, yeah, speaking for myself, I don't think that's what that's what I understood. I understood we were gonna go to the planning board and have a conversation with them. So that would be productive toward producing a better work product. Answering unanswered questions, finding things that needed to be done, that may have been missed. That would then produce a better work product for them to finally review. It's hard for us to, be able to do that productively if we're not being told what the dissatisfaction is with what we've done so far. We did get comments today from the chair of the planning board. We're gonna certainly look at those. So we're done with what we've done. Now we're gonna try our very best to look at and address in good faith whatever comments, questions, or concerns we get from the planning board. Or,
Well, then
and-
that's-
Okay,
That's it, yeah.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
That's great, thank you. All right, discussion on town expenditure for fiber optic cable. We had, touched on this at our short meeting last week. We were trying to get more information, more updates. Is there anything new that will help us inform this conversation tonight?
I reached out for the Fidium rep. He was not, he hasn't been available to give me any specifics. But I did ask him some specific questions regarding any changes based on what was proposed back in April and the cost. And the only information I got back was that that should be a conversation. And he has not been available for a conversation since. So I take from that yes, there have been some changes. More than that, I'm not sure.
So is there an opportunity for to have him come to a board meeting?
He offered to be in the Zoom. I imagine he would. I didn't ask him specifically. He offered to be on Zoom with us tonight, but I was looking for a consensus to find out if that was what people wanted, and I think the emails missed. Yes.
We haven't decided, you know. First, I think maybe there's a discussion about it's just too expensive. Okay, well, I have some thoughts on that, but if, maybe the first thing that we should decide, if we think it's just too expensive, and if we do, then I don't know what the point is in doing all this. And I have, I have some thoughts, if I could take a minute on that. Okay? The last deal was, that I understand, is they could extend fiber optic to every house in Wayne while they're doing Fayette for $550,000 to be paid to them. They need that because the economics won't permit them to do it themselves without a subsidy. Bryce checked into a loan at that time, and a 5-year loan had payments of $133,000 a year. That meant the total cost of this would be $660,000. Okay. Now, there's a statement in Maine law of public necessity that says access to affordable, reliable, high-speed broadband internet is necessary to the general welfare of the public and the people of the state. Now, I agree with that policy statement, but I wouldn't suggest that it requires the town to provide fiber optic broadband to every household in Wayne when we can't afford it. I doubt many people hate high-speed fiber optic. They just are afraid they can't afford it. Now, the question of affordability, I think, is not all that cut and dry. So, me, like many people here, taxes on my home will increase about 25% over last year's tax. About $1,000. I've calculated that an additional town expense of $133,000 per year would add about $153 more to my already high tax bill. But that doesn't mean this is going to cost me an additional $153. I currently pay Spectrum for broadband cable service. Spectrum's price for 300 Mbps internet only service to me is $85 a month. I looked up on the website, Fidium's price out for a customer in Augusta where they offer it. According to Fidium's website, a customer in Augusta getting the same speed fiber optic service pays $55 a month. That saves me $360 a year on my internet bill. So for me, the net effect would be a savings of $217 a year. Now, well, maybe not bingo, but based on that, I suspect that just about everyone who switches from Spectrum to Fidium would realize a net savings over their current total cost. And people who don't currently have broadband available will get it available at a price less, even with the tax increase, than they would have to pay Spectrum for the service. But not all taxpayers are going to do that. Taxpayers who may not want broadband internet or don't want to give up their bundled services available from Spectrum, they're going to end up with a tax increase and no offsetting direct monetary benefit. And even considering that, there's still, I'm talking about private monetary benefit, there's still the general societal benefit of having affordable, high-speed internet to, promote entrepreneurial activity, to get people to move here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So before I hear what anybody else has to say in waiting on that, my initial opinion is that we should not eliminate this based solely on the basis of affordability. Now, that doesn't mean I think we have something suitable to send to the town for action. I think there's a boatload of blanks that need to be filled in on this before we could ever put together a warrant article that makes any sense. And if we want to proceed further, maybe we need to appoint a board member or two and a staff member to gather information, and they could do that without offending the open meetings requirement of the law and without diverting the attention of the entire board who has other business like hiring a permanent town manager that we need to take care of. And so I'd like to say we don't want to proceed because it's too expensive, or we're not ruling it out and we want to appoint a group to go fill in all these blanks. And blanks are things like, when do we make the payments? what kind of a guarantee do we have on the service? Are they guaranteeing us that our price to our residents are gonna be, no higher than the price to anybody else? There's a whole bunch of blanks that need to be filled in. So, so people will stop asking about it, and we can divert our attention to other matters. Maybe we should consider whether this is something we definitely want to move forward on and appoint a subgroup within our ranks to fill in the blanks. That's all I have to say. I'm sorry for taking so much time.
Board members.
So I think it's a changing landscape. I think I saw in the online news this week, at least 2 articles where different towns have received varying amounts of money from the state. I don't know what the current stance is on where we might get money from the state. And I'm also concerned that that $550,000 bid came kind of it wasn't substantiated with anything. It was an informal cost proposal. And, you know, that's a lot of money. I don't know why we would not be asking for a competitive bid before we go to the town and say, this is what it's definitively gonna cost. I think there's a process. I think there's a lot of unknowns. We can't answer what it's gonna cost the town.
Do you have comment, Lloyd? Yes, Mike.
First, I want to thank Henry for really digging into the true total cost of what this could be. And I think he's done a very good job of looking at what could happen if you have high-speed fiber with, let's say, Fidium, and what opportunities that gives people to lower their monthly price with Spectrum. And one thing I would add is, I believe the fellow's name was Simon Thorne, who came to the meeting. I believe he also mentioned when he was asked the question, what did their marketing surveys find out about towns who put in fiber? And I believe the number was somewhere between 10 and 15% property value increase, because you now have high-speed fiber and you can attract other types of people to the town, professionals, for education, for medical purposes. There's an awful lot that can go along with high-speed fiber. And I think eventually Wayne is going to become a pocket, a desert amongst all these other towns who have high-speed fiber. And other people will be looking at those towns to settle into because they have it and we don't. Thank you. Bye.
I think we should definitely make a list of the holes, blanks. And we should definitely have this guy here to talk to us about it. And then we should explore the question to see who in today's world is interested in being a supplier of this. Maybe Fidium is the only one, but we ought to find out.
We don't know that. Trent, you have a question from the gentleman on the floor? I think.
Just a follow-up. If Simon Thorne's not calling me back, his boss's name, her name's Sarah Davis. And I can get you her phone number. She called me back yesterday within a couple of hours and talked to me. And if you'd like her name, if Simon's not getting back to you, I can get you his boss's name.
No, we've been trading emails. We haven't gotten on the phone.
I can get you his number.
Okay, now he has a question.
So Simon Thorne is very responsive. I talked to him last week. I emailed him today, because I knew I was coming to the meeting tonight. A couple things, there is BEAD funding, which is coming available to towns like Wayne that will connect everyone to internet. My expectation is 3 years, best case scenario, probably more like 5. So for, I don't know how many residents that you guys have that don't have high-speed internet, it is coming. It is going to be a win. The reason that Fidium has made this offer to you guys, that they made a similar offer in Reedfield, is because they've got the funding to do that. So they are building in Reedfield right now as we speak. They are building actually in Wayne right now as we speak. They're covering a huge portion of Wayne at their own cost. The proposal that they gave to you is they said, hey, we're here. we're in town, we're doing this build out. Would you like us to do the full town? And if so, this is the price that we're doing it. I'm not saying that another competitor can do it for cheaper. I'm not gonna speak to that. But that is why Fidium at least is making this proposal. That's why it came out of the blue. Because it didn't come out of the blue. They got the RFP for Fayette. Just
Thanks.
wanted to share that because I knew there was a couple of questions I thought I could answer.
So how does the board feel or think they want to act? I think Henry suggested group organizing to look into this further. Is that, it seems sensible? Does the board want to stop all
No,
direction, or we want to look into it?
we should look into it. You brought up lots of good questions. Thanks.
I know, I think that in somewhere in the last, I forget, 6 years, is that right, Mike?
That's what I've heard numerous times.
Somewhere in the last 6 years, there was a point where I'll say it quietly, but a committee was supposed to look into this. I don't know if that ever developed or formed. But it's on the legs of what you're saying. I don't necessarily think we need to expand it. Maybe, are there board members who wanna? Before, you had two questions. Question is move forward, and the second
The
question,
second is move forward
Or
or
not.
drop
or drop.
it.
So,
And, yeah, is my suggestion. And then if we say move forward, that doesn't mean do it. That just means, a small group, and I'm happy to work, and I think you were working with Stan before, right?
I was in one meeting with Stan,
Oh, okay.
and I, so,
Okay.
and I'm not
But,
even, yeah,
but I,
so I was in one
yeah,
meeting.
but I mean, I'm happy to work on it. I think we maybe should check from my reading, which isn't all that good. I'm a newbie at all this, okay? But I think you can have a subgroup of one or two people who can meet and do something, and it's not an official board proceeding, and it's not subject to the open meetings requirements of the law.
Right.
And we can do that and come up with a list of things that we need to find out in a timetable to do it.
Put it in writing and put it to them in writing, so
Yeah,
it's harder
yeah.
to say no to.
And I would suggest what we want to do is not take up the whole board's attention any more than tonight until we do some more important things like hire a permanent town manager.
I would suggest if whomever decides to volunteer, Henry is at this point, simultaneously looking at either at the Fidium relationship and or I think this bead program needs some attention. Because we might be still paying a loan payment debt service.
Yeah.
Or
Right.
for Fidium, and bead could be here in 3 years, and I think we need to consider that.
Yeah.
And how that weighs into our decision.
We also are a community that's gonna be low down the priority list, because there are other communities. The reason Fayette got the award is they got zero high speed.
Right.
And one of the things, like you were saying, Hazel, about how did they come up with 550? Yeah, I'm curious about that too.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they have a contract. If they got a grant, they have a contract. And somebody who offered that grant and negotiated a price and agreed to it, and we should be able to take a look at those materials
Right.
and see what's in there.
It was,
And it would be, it's, you know, it's public access material. We can get it, take a look at it.
Well, I would say that the answers to the questions are yes and yes.
Yes.
So we ought to,
And-
we'll delegate you and whoever else. I'd like to pass on it. Partly because I haven't been going to before, and partly because my brain is not coming back very well. And it would just slow things down to have me doing.
other than the fact that I'm working on the hiring committee.
Yeah, and if anybody can, and I can do it and I can bother Bryce,
Yeah.
That seems like a good idea.
you know.
I can take a little bit of the bead program and find out what's going on with bead. I would do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Mike.
I spoke to 3 companies yesterday. One is Fidium, one was Axiom, Mark Willett, who worked at the town. And I also spoke to a company called Outreach, who puts in fiber and sets up internet for different towns, primarily up in Scotland. They all talked a little bit about BEAD, and I know you said there's money coming, and I agree. They all said it could be quite a while before it's here. And each of them had maps of the town, and they could look at that map and see exactly what was being serviced, and they could tell where people had just DSL service, slow speeds, or they had cable, and they know that Wayne has no fiber. But they also understand that the state is granting money based on connectivity in that town. And that's why the money is going to towns that have very little connectivity, whereas Wayne has connectivity, but a lot of it is not very fast. So their thought is that Wayne will continue to be on the low end of the pecking order to get more money. And by the time you get to a point where they can give it, there might not be any left. So that's something to consider when you keep thinking about BEAD and BEAD being the solution to this. It may not, I don't think it will end up being there. And that's what they said. But maybe that's something different.
Yeah, brief, and we're gonna wrap this up.
Okay,
Thanks.
so a question was brought up about BEAD, so I wanted to answer that, because I think I can answer most of your questions. BEAD funding is going to be for underserved or zero service people only. The RFPs have gone out, they will probably be completed by next year. The RFP will be completed by next year, the work will probably be 3 to 5 years. It's going to be for the people who are on the end of the dead end road. I'm here, I'm not getting it. And it's not gonna be for the whole town.
Right.
So,
Understood.
Fidium, I had that map, I'm not supposed to, but I have the map of what they're doing in Wayne. I know exactly where Fidium is coming into Wayne. If you wait on BEAD, it's gonna be just for the 15 residents, I don't know how many you have. They are gonna get high speed, and anyone they happen to go by is gonna get high speed. No one else is gonna get the fiber. So I hope that answers your question a little bit. I had something else. but I
Yeah,
forgot.
that's good,
Yeah,
thank you. No, that's great, I appreciate it. And we're gonna look, Henry's gonna start this.
Good.
Yeah.
I'll follow up with BEAD, and I understand.
No, I appreciate
The
it.
thing was, if you guys do go with Fidium and you get 100% service, then BEAD goes away because everyone in town has service.
Certainly,
So you wouldn't get any BEAD funding because you would have no need for it.
yeah, all right, thank you, that's great. Consider C.H. Stevenson quote for Innis Ridge Road Culvert Project.
I think you skipped it.
Oh, sorry, I skipped, excuse me.
He's not on it, he's already.
He's not gonna let you skip that one.
You're all set.
Carry on.
Discussion on hiring an interim administrative office support staff. You wanna kick this off, Bryce, a little bit? What do you think? Where are we at?
I'm thinking we need to do something sooner rather than later. Just because we're stretched thin, for example, last week I was alone, today I was alone. Trying to appease people's vacations and, it's been a struggle and this week has been hard, so I just think we need to do something because we had plans of when people were coming back and it just didn't happen. And so I absolutely, some of these things that I would have liked to bring more like in my report end of the thing, just I could not get to. I can't, unless I close the office down, and I can be honest, I don't think people will be happy if we close the office down because there's a lot of unhappy campers that want, questions answered regarding the tax increase, and I just don't think the closed sign is the best option or route to take. So I try to appease them as they come through the door, and yeah, you can't get much done without a solid hour of straight focus on something.
Bryce, last week you said that there was somebody who had some time available.
Yeah, Jessica, who previously worked for the town, but she's more limited than I thought she
Oh,
was, so
okay.
she could come in a couple Fridays here and there, but
So not that
Not-
regular and not that.
as I hope.
So how would you proceed, how would you proceed if we authorized a certain number of days a month or something like that? Well,
Well, I mean, we have the whole budget line for tax collector, so we have
Right.
we have the funds to get somebody in there. And they will just be like a desk clerk, and it's gonna be hard to find, it's kind of a weird thing because it's no. It would be very nice if somebody could come right in and know how to do everything, but I don't think that's gonna be the case, so it's gonna be kind of a.
I have a question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was
go for it.
just gonna say, and I don't know if I'm getting ahead of us, but, would you be able to put together some list that would appear like a job description so that we could understand what you would need? And that's, I'm not saying that everyone would agree with me. But
I was about to
Just-
suggest, let's find out what,
yeah,
you know,
what,
what level of help you need.
right,
And, we could suggest an approximate number of hours per week. I think if somebody's gonna come in on a regular basis
Yeah.
and be reliable to you, you better make a commitment to them that you need them for X hours.
For sure.
Bring us a proposal, Bryce. Are you gonna
Okay.
use a temp agency? Are you gonna hire somebody? I mean, I assume it's temporary help, but bring us a proposal, what you need, how much it's gonna cost and how long it's gonna take.
next meeting, right?
I gotta think about this and it harkens back to what we switched this town office to full-time Monday through, or Tuesday through Friday. I think it was it's been 10 years, 9 years, 8 years, 7 years. It's not, the town office always had very peculiar hours, but everybody was familiar with how peculiar it was. The only reason I bring this up is another way to look at this. In the sense of. Why is the small town that's. What's the pros and cons list, quite frankly, of having the office only open for business for the public 3 days a week? I mean, it was that way. I don't know the total history, but it was that way my entire life up until. I don't know, maybe it's been a decade, maybe less.
It has been a decade.
It hasn't even been a decade. So I don't know if that is another way to look at it, or if that's a way to look at it, but I think it's a way to look at it, whether you do or not, I don't know.
Do you mean, so in regards to staff, and hours that staff is working, are they working just for 3 days or are they
I don't know.
there an extra
Maybe
day?
it's a
I
total
think that,
reboot, because what you're commenting on, it has been a perennial situation in that town office. In the sense that I have complete empathy and sympathy for what you're expressing, but it's also. It's an issue. It has been an issue. It's been an issue for years about staffing, coverage in the office, the relationship to vacation time. And how it's just overstretched. The people in the office are, that's what I'm hearing, right?
Yeah.
Is that true?
I mean, to an extent,
Yeah.
I understand where you're coming from with the hours. I think we also have a job to be open, for the public to have availability to come in and, so that's a.
Right,
bit as
and
well.
that's kind of that's what I'm trying to ask, if. There's a way to help support your role and jobs required for the town, but also support the public, is it? I don't know,
Yeah, I guess
there's
I
an
don't-
idea, like, does the town office have to be open
In a
4 days a week?
in a temporary fashion, I think,
We have an interim town manager, we're in a different situation, we're understaffed.
I would just say, that it would be limited public hours. I don't know.
Right.
I
mean,
So the alternative is, or the parallel track is, maybe Bryce could put together a schedule of, when the office could be closed to the public to allow. And maybe it's, I don't know.
and I don't need the right answer.
Every Tuesday morning, every Wednesday afternoon or whatever, so that the counter's not open constantly, but you could probably put the schedule based on the traffic. Like
Oh,
your
for
volume,
sure. Yeah.
because you probably know what days people come in.
Yeah.
I'm sure they come in on Tuesdays, it's been closed on Mondays.
Yeah.
And maybe they come in on Friday afternoons because they got out of work early. I don't know. I'm just making up stories
No,
here.
yeah, for sure.
But,
if you had-
and I don't necessarily, obviously, I'm not there every day, so I mean, I just. If it's a way to help immediately, in the sense, because training takes forever,
Oh, yeah,
it can be
exactly.
brutal.
Mhm.
I mean, it can,
Yeah,
it's
no,
hard.
that's my concern about
Hard.
attempts.
So perhaps, along with, if the proposal for bringing somebody in is something we agree to, in the meantime, you can also put a proposal for what hours would allow you immediately, because the need is immediate, and bringing somebody in for support would still be a lengthy process, but if you can put together what you would suggest for a schedule for the town office.
And it's not just a Bryce problem. It's a town governance problem. I go there and I say, hey, Bryce, let's sit down, because when I get these warrants, I feel like it's just a rote deal. Oh, here's a warrant, say yes, you know. What can we do to show how much money we have on each of these and how much of the budget is used, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which I think might be helpful to us to have a little more financial information doing the warrants. And we start talking about that, and then there's this noise, it goes bang, bang. And somebody needs a license plate, and bang, bang, somebody, I guess, needed to get married the other day.
Friday.
And so, let's have more financial information for the governance of the town gets pushed behind. I just got a car from my uncle and need to register it.
Right.
And so I think it's kind of important to let him have some time to help us
Yes.
do our job.
Would provide the time for bids, for content, I mean, there's so much.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
for
it's
sure.
just so much. So I think you could get back to us with a couple of those avenues, maybe we could talk about, finalize some ideas. Again, right, is there
Yes, sir.
anything further? Yeah. Okay, thanks, Bryce. All
We
right.
don't need to be in a meeting to agree to change the town office hours, do we?
I don't think so. Isn't that a function of the town manager?
I would
Yeah.
think, I'm kind of in a position, as interim, I don't know what boundaries are over, you know.
I don't believe that we would need to be in a meeting to
No.
formally change the hours, so,
The acknowledgement from the board, I think
I
it's
think
good
it's
that,
important.
yeah,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
so it's not, you guys are wondering why I'm closed here and closed there.
No, so we all know about it, it's very important, but I think,
Communicated.
Yeah,
I think the select chair, you talk with him and he says, good idea.
Yeah.
Um,
And it might be something that we'd have to maybe initiate after maybe a messenger comes out, or, some sort of,
formal,
that'd be nice, rather than start tomorrow, because that could probably get a lot of. Yes, I don't know, just something to think about, that when we do it and how we do it, if that's the direction that the board chooses to go in.
Good.
All right, consider C.H. Stevenson quote for Innis Ridge Road culvert project.
I'm
Right.
gonna sit this one out based on the appearance of thank you.
Okay.
Brain cramp.
Price.
so I guess we brought this forward, I think, Trent, you weren't here when I brought it forward before.
Yep.
We have a paving project we're trying to do, and we're trying to do it right, and that would be replace the culverts before we pave over them all. Which hasn't happened in the past before, but, so this is just one of those situations. I reached out for quotes, and we're kind of on the tail end of the seasons, and
Mhm.
people are booked right up through the end of October. So I couldn't get anybody, so this is obviously to an amount that I can't approve and alone, you need the board's approval, and it really will hold up the paving of Innis Ridge Road, so I just need to know how the board feels so I can adjust to make it happen. I spoke to somebody at McGee Construction and another company that I'm drawing a blank on. They got back to me. They just can't get out here. And within,
and this is the total 35,200?
Correct.
Mhm.
and move, the price be, authorized to move ahead with this, bid.
Seconded.
Any discussion? In this, in the scope of roads, we'll do this, and then are we still on track? I know it's not specifically related to the motion, but related to the spending, are we still headed for Old Winthrop and Pond Road this fall?
Yeah, so those will get, a shim over the top of them, and then the next year we'll overlay, but that's the point. Again, that's also been held up from a cash standpoint as well.
Right.
So,
So there's no more culvert work for projects forthcoming
no,
this fall,
we
correct?
correct, we looked through, Pond Road and Old Winthrop Road, and
No
those culverts look fine.
Okay,
They're either cement or plastic, so
okay.
it's really the steel culverts that are rotting out that we need to replace.
May I ask a question, just because I don't understand this process very well? Supporting the 35,200, the last page is exclusions. Is there a chance that that's gonna add much more money onto this?
I mean, that's usually something that we'd iron out with them when it comes, that I say we put, that we've accepted that.
Yeah.
We'll have a contract, and then the contract, before I sign, we'll really make sure of what that, if there's any, 5%, 10% shift it could take, but,
Okay. Again, just curious, not to.
and sometimes it's less, it's, they've been pretty fair with me. I had them do some shoulder work, and it took them a lot less time than it did, and it, they came in half of the price they thought they would.
Well. We don't really have a lot of options.
Yeah, no, it's basically, I mean,
Let's get it done.
we can ride it out until spring, or, yeah, I guess that's. What I.
It's always difficult to see, or from my perspective, to see a project that exceeds our price limit, that doesn't get multiple bids, but.
Oh, for sure,
That's frustrating. Just for this, I like to see multiple bids on project of this scope, but. Seeing that we're trying to get some stuff done, and then, okay, all in favor? All right,
Great. You could do that by abstention.
oh, good, we segued nicely. Update on road projects.
Although, do we have supplements and abatements?
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, it's a nice segue.
Ugh. Supplements and abatements,
It's okay, we're gonna jump over it.
all right. Town manager report.
So, couple projects being on, we've had some shoulder work that, with this rain that has really emerged, that has been taken care of piece by piece. Some driveway culverts. From past storm events. Kind of goes into the next segue, but we did get finally from, I think, May of 23, we received our FEMA reimbursement, so that was a nice $21,000 check. So, we're still working on the December storm.
Did you say 21,000?
So the December storm with all the 5 inches of rain, so that one's for more, and I'm just finishing up working on that, taking pictures, coordinates, so. There'll hopefully be a reimbursement, maybe in another year, but it will come eventually.
Where does that go? The 21,000 into the budget?
Bruce and I had discussed that right now. It could be rejournaled, but just in the general fund, because roads were so overexpended in the years past that,
In the general fund?
yeah,
Can go right towards this culvert project.
that too, yeah.
So was that part of our budget as an expected income?
Right, okay.
Yeah, so it really, I mean, in a way, it could go right back into roads, but.
Right.
Our paving, that kind of leads into the finances, but the paving capital line has had a hard few years, so it's kind of, it could have gone back towards that, where I think when we spent the extra funds on some of these disaster events,
Mhm.
we had used that line.
Out of the general fund.
Well,
So I misunderstood that, excuse me. When we had the disaster.
yeah, if it was over what we budgeted for
Yeah.
that line.
Yep.
The cash comes from.
So just as a small aside regarding the December. Regarding the December mess that you're still following up on.
Mm.
There's a bit of a washout on Lord Road that I happen to know about. Have you, did you know about that? Is that included?
No, I haven't heard.
Okay, so I could send you pictures.
Yeah, no, I can go take, I have a couple of the road issues. I need to go.
Okay, I just wanted you, because if that could get some more money for us, that'd be great.
Yeah, there's usually a time window. I've learned a lot about that, so if we have any more storms, you really need to be out like the week after and
Oh,
taking
gosh, okay.
pictures, so it's kind of an extensive process. Luckily, there's been a couple where I've reached out to people who've had the pictures and whatnot. I don't know now, I don't think we could possibly go back. There was like a good 6 week stretch where we had a rep from FEMA coming every week. And that we were working with Taylor and I, but yeah, so the roads are, and then we still do have our plan at the road. The committee and I were working on, it's on the whiteboard and there, I need to get it on a piece of paper and bring it forward so you guys can see that kind of, it's several years worth of projects and funds, but. Not what we got.
Okay, that's great, thank you. Okay, related to roads?
Yes,
Yeah, sure.
not to throw road salt on the wound, but, on the August 2nd meeting, I mentioned Hardscrabble has some pretty big potholes that are getting bigger. They
Yeah,
haven't been filled yet.
Okay. Oh. Member reports?
We need to do that charge for the hiring committee, right?
Yes,
That's right.
right.
Did we skip the update on finances?
I kind of dabbled in it, but I can. We'll
Was there
go back.
anything in addition?
There's this chart I made you, and
Oh,
there was,
Very nice chart.
there's been, there was supposed to be more, but that was something that got cut back on because I was going a couple different directions, you know. Whether balance of reserve funds, and I think my plan with Bruce's help is to really, to give you guys a better picture is. You know, here is what our reserve funds have on the books compared to the cash, and here's what out of our cash, what we're operating with. I think we'll clear up, you know, some, you know, substantial questions. I did forget to put on that, you know, average, home assessment, and I realized that today when I was coming in, but.
Can I ask, this information, of course, is so important. Would it be helpful and appropriate to bring Bruce in to do this update for us once a month?
I talked to him about that, and I think where our ordinances read, it would be best if. Cause he doesn't really work under the town manager, that you
Right.
guys call forward with a
Right.
list of questions and say. You know, we want, cause
Okay.
there is a separation, I believe, from what I read that
Well, that's
I mean,
what
I
was
can ask
thinking.
him, but I think it would be best if,
Yes,
cause he likes to be asked. He's not gonna probably come in on his free will, but.
Okay.
Definitely ask the questions, and he has the answers, and we've been working at, it. You know, it is just hard. We were gonna work on it today, cause I wasn't expecting to be alone, and some of last week, but it's just impossible. You can't talk numbers, and then I go disappear off for an hour to do registration or.
Right.
But,
Okay.
so what I just understood is that we can have Bruce in once a month to do reports. And he would appreciate any questions that we have, we send ahead of time.
mhm.
So
But we need to ask him what his.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I would recommend, I think would be the best avenue. And I just remembered because we're all over the place where I am, is I have this climate resiliency partnership municipal resolution. I got that today because they met in July. And they really need that to be adopted before they can move forward. it's just the next step in the process that, Wayne is willing to work with Leeds or, Monmouth, I think the other communities that they just need a signature. It's not locking us into anything. It's just, the board, they want to make sure the board has adopted and
Do you have
approved
a
kind of
copy
the
of this?
work.
You have a copy of this for signatures?
Latest to read
For
it.
us to
Yeah.
sign?
Oh,
You can, you can glance over, yeah, it kind of came in last minute and they want to start working on it before, September 1st, so.
Yeah.
I will donate mine for signatures.
I have,
Oh, you have
yeah,
several?
those are just all your copies.
Okay.
Okay, let's get that started.
And there's several people who've stepped forward through the town, so we can definitely call on them to come in and just explain. Where they are in the process, and they had a meeting and there's a packet that I really should post and email out, so that will kind of explain better who showed up and. What the discussion was. It's essentially just the discussion points that where they want to focus. And it's something that I just haven't had time and, I think I don't know if there's essentially appointments, but there were a few people, Leslie being one of them, I think, who stepped up to really kind of hone in on this and work with Dia.
Thank you. I had before, we were gonna go over the committee charge for the hiring committee, but I had a quick, I think
Should
it's
we-
brief.
May I ask, do we need to move to accept this resolution?
We're making a commitment in here to participate in the community
Yeah.
resilience partnership.
Yeah, let's have a
Should we
motion.
just
I think we need to.
vote on that? I move that we approve and adopt the Community Resilience Partnership Municipal Resolution.
Second,
Discussion. All in favor? Okay. I have a quick question, Bryce. So it was brought to my attention about scheduling for this facility. From both from the town functions as well as like private functions. And there was a resident who brought up conflicts in scheduling in the calendar. I'm just throwing that out there to you and Adam. Is there a calendar, community calendar? I'm not really sure. I'm just trying, I wanted to address that. We
Yeah, I usually would talk to Adam. I know there was some conflicts with the planning board meeting, but it was. A dancing class that they're able to switch around. I haven't heard of anything that's major, but I guess.
Okay.
I need to look into it so it doesn't surprise me.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to leave that before okay, and then this is a small point, but. And I don't drive up there very often, for whatever reason, I was driving up Hardscrabble and Lincoln Point. Is there not a stop sign or a yield sign?
I have it in my office. I just gotta,
Cause I was with my wife and I was like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going. Okay. Got it,
Stop sign.
So at least they stop and will come to your office.
okay,
All right.
anyhow, thank you.
All right.
Did you want to talk about the committee?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
first of all, I would like to formally, commit the group that, the full list of the group of people. So we have that down formally. We did the others and, I'd like to get that done. The other thing is that, thank you, Henry, I've got, a charge written out. I'm sorry, I tried to send it to the group, but I don't think it made it through because of some email glitches, that I've discovered. So I would like to adopt this, and because there are not enough copies, I could read it. At the risk of boring everybody, go ahead. So the committee membership would be Betsy Clark, MT Clark, Dennis Dalheim, Teresa Kirchner, Carol Ladd, Ken Spalding, Ford Stevenson, with Hazel and myself as co-facilitators. The tasks that are written are review the town manager plan statute and specifically the powers and duties of the town manager for a full understanding. Review the sample town manager job descriptions and make recommendations to the select board regarding contents of a job description for the Wayne Town Manager position, including description of the nature of the work, listing of essential duties and responsibilities, listing of required key attributes and skills, description of desired training and experience. Then review town manager job postings and make recommendations to the select board regarding, one, the contents of the job posting, information that should be included in posting and required from applicants. Two, reasonable time for the posting to be open. And three, how to proceed with the posting. And I see that I made a typo. Then D, make recommendation to the select board regarding interview questions. E, make recommendations to the select board regarding the relevant background check questions. I'm going to have to fix that too. Reference, thank you. My reading brain is different than my speaking brain. Number two, committee proceedings. The committee shall meet at least bi-weekly. The committee shall establish its own procedures and rules of conduct. The committee meetings shall be noticed and conducted as public proceedings under Maine's Freedom of Access Act. The committee shall determine what public participation, if any, will be permitted at its meetings. And number three, last, the committee shall conclude its work and report its recommendations to the select board. Originally, we said October 1st. I'd like to suggest we put October 15th here at that select board meeting. Any updates, any
I
changes?
thought we were gonna have, a limited charge for the actual content of the, whatever you call it, the circular to go around to request applicants.
The posting.
We're not gonna do that.
That was the contents of the job posting.
Right,
That's part of the challenge.
right. Well, where is it? Where is the process?
Right here.
I see.
Well, I'm looking for the document. But I thought I had the understanding that you would present the document. It would be. They would be used for that purpose.
That would be the charge for the committee to develop it.
Okay, well, right.
I think I'm not clearly understanding.
Right. Yeah. You're gonna be coming time before that happens.
At our initial meeting, I assume that we would put together a schedule to have that done. A lot of work has been done previous to this,
Okay,
so it shouldn't take too long. I'm hoping. But if we get all this done, if we have a charge to get it done by October 15th, it would have to be early on. It had been done initially in the first iteration of this meeting or of that committee meetings, but because we did not have an agreed upon statute and job description, it couldn't be formally completed. But there has been work that's been done. I believe it's been done with an eye towards where we're going to be now. So that should short circuit the amount of work that it took to get to that point.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
That is my proposal with thanks to Henry.
Motion to accept the charge as presented.
Yep.
Second.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Great, thank you. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, what I'll do is, I will fix some of the typos that I've got in here, send it out to the whole committees. And let them know where to begin, and then between you and me, and we
We would Bryce to notice the meeting.
right? So, but we should decide whether we want it, and then ask them to notice it.
Yeah.
Right, okay. All right, good.
Thank you. Public comments. All right, seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Great, thank you, everyone, have a nice night.